Hey there guys, Nordic Warrior here, welcome back to my video game review series. So, last time out I reviewed Spider-Man on the PS1 from the year 2000. Today I'm going to be reviewing Spider-Man 2, Enter Electro, released in 2002, developed by Vicarious Visions, also released for the PS1. So this was the final Spider-Man game to be released on the PS1, and the game pretty much picks up where the last game left off. At the beginning of the game you get a short recap of the events of the last game, with some updated cutscenes. You once again get an opening narration from Stan Lee.
Welcome, true believers. Stan Lee here to bring you yet another scintillating tale of superhero daring-do. So get ready for a pulse-pounding, web-slinging tale of shocking revelations.
So the story of this game centers around the main villain Electro, who plans to steal an item called the Bio-Nexus device in order to basically enhance his own power and take over the world. He enlists the help of several villains from the Spider-Man comics such as Shocker, Sandman, Hammerhead, and several others who Spidey will run into and have to contend with. On a slightly negative note, I didn't find the story to be quite as interesting or as memorable as the first game, but I don't really have a problem with it. Just when compared to the first game, it feels a little bit basic. The game is once again a third-person action-adventure platformer. The game pretty much uses the exact same gameplay mechanics and design as the first game, with a few minor improvements and changes. First of all, the game's graphics and presentation are slightly better than the first game. The environments and character models look slightly better and more polished and detailed than they did the first time. Spider-Man's costume in particular looks significantly better. Just like with the first game, you have a variety of strategies you can use in combat. You have your standard melee attacks. You can punch by pressing square, and kick by pressing circle. You can also do several aerial attacks. You can also mix your melee attacks up in combination. Pressing triangle activates your web attacks, and once again, just like with the first game, you have several different web attacks to use, such as your standard trap webbing, your impact webs, and several other different types of web attacks. Once again, Spidey will find health packs and web cartridges scattered around each level. Spidey's webbing will decrease over time, and you can replenish it by collecting these cartridges. Replacing the fire webbing from the first game, you can now collect ice webbing for freezing enemies, and electric webbing for defeating robots. As far as enemy variety goes, you have your standard thugs and mercenaries in the early part of the game. These enemies are pretty easy and vulnerable to all your attacks. Later in the game, you'll fight Hammerhead's thugs, who are slightly tougher, basically 1930s mobster types who wear snazzy suits and carry Tommy guns. Later in the game, you'll fight robots and drones who are weak to electrified webbing, but more resistant to other attacks. Another slight improvement over the first game is the fact that some of the outdoor levels this time allow you to reach the ground, whereas in the first game you couldn't. However, sadly, levels this time, despite being more detailed and varied, are much shorter than the first game, and in my opinion slightly less interesting. There are levels in this game that are literally over in seconds. For example, a level where you have to stop a plane from crashing in an airport hangar. That's the entire level over. Like a level where you have to disarm a bomb by finding all 4 colour keys to deactivate it. It's easy enough to do, but it just comes out of nowhere and feels a little bit like filler, really adding nothing to the story. The game also has several boss battles, and if I'm being honest, these boss battles are a bit of a mixed bag. Some of them are excellent and really well designed, like the Sandman boss battle for example, which is probably my favourite boss battle in the game, taking place in a construction site. You have to use the environment and nearby water valves to soak Sandman, making him vulnerable to Spidey's attacks, or the Lizard boss battle, which is really intense and brutal. I also love the final boss battle against Electro on top of a skyscraper, where he has nearly limitless power and you basically have to use the nearby generators to drain his power so that you can attack him. That was a really cool boss battle and a really good climax of the game. However, some of the other boss battles are very poorly designed and a little bit glitchy. You take for example the Shocker boss battle in the game, where you have a time limit to beat him and can literally beat him in seconds by simply yanking a couple of crates onto his head. It's easy enough to do, but it just comes across as a little bit lame. I would have preferred a slightly longer and more drawn out battle, and I replayed this boss battle numerous times, and tried just beating him without the boxes just for the fun of it. Or the first Electro boss battle, which again is easy enough to do, but just feels really weird and glitchy. You also have a level where you have to catch a train while Sandman is trying to attack you, and you have to basically destroy his roadblocks while at the same time enduring his attacks. It's quite a tedious level in my opinion. So like I said, the boss battles are a bit of a mixed bag. Some of them are excellent, others are kind of lame. They are certainly nowhere near as fun or as well designed as the boss battles in the first game. Just like with the first game, you have several collectibles. Once again, you find comics hidden throughout the game in various levels. Some of them are out in the open, others are pretty well hidden. This gives you an incentive to really have a look round each level, and once you've found them all, you can display them in your gallery. You also have the character viewer, where you get a short bio of each of the game's characters, as well as a description narrated by Stan Lee.
Our mild-mannered, highly intelligent, sometimes neurotic hero of the game. Once a two-bit thug, until he had an adamantium plate implanted in his head, Hammerhead now rules the Mafia with an iron hand. The Lizard, product of a twisted experiment gone wrong.
Just like with the first game, you can also interact with the character models on screen in the character viewer and make them do certain things like rotate them and enlarge them and stuff like that. This is a really cool feature, and I'm glad that they kept it in the game. You also have some unlockable artwork for your gallery too, and just like with the first game, a whole bunch of unlockable costumes. What's cool about this is you have every single costume from the first game, as well as a whole bunch of new ones. Some costumes are purely cosmetic, others have unique powers and abilities. A new feature that they added this time was called Create a Spider, which allows you to customize any of the game's costumes by adding whatever power and ability you've unlocked, such as unlimited webbing, invulnerability, invisibility, and several other attributes. This again adds some replay value to the game and gives you an incentive to replay the levels with different costumes. Just like with the first game, you also have the What If mode, a feature in the game where if you type in a particular cheat code, you'll be able to replay the game, and you'll notice that there are a few minor changes. You'll notice there are several new references and oddities, like a giant floating banana that gives Spidey a ride from one side of the level to the other, or a few little extra mini games. These aren't quite as funny or as interesting as the changes and references that were in the What If mode of the first game, but I do appreciate them for what they are, and it adds a little bit more replay value. So overall, this game is pretty good. It pretty much keeps the same formula from the first game, and doesn't really do anything drastically different. A few things have been improved, like the graphics and presentation, which are slightly better, as well as the combat, which seems a little bit more polished, and the ability to reach the ground in some of the levels that take place outdoors. But as I mentioned before, the boss battles this time are nowhere near as good as they were in the first game, and the story and writing this time by comparison just seems pretty lame in my opinion. The game also feels very short, much shorter than the first game, which actually in itself was pretty short. I know that this game did have a bit of a chaotic development cycle, with last minute changes having to be made to the game after 9/11, and with it being taken over from Neversoft, the previous developer who did the first game. So I guess that those things in collaboration could have contributed to the game's overall rushed feel. But overall, I still enjoyed this game for what it is, and I would definitely recommend it to any Spidey fan. It's not quite as good as the first game in my opinion, despite a few minor improvements, and there isn't really much else to say about it, but it's a game that is good in its own right, in my opinion. Thanks for watching guys, I really enjoyed reviewing Spider-Man 2. Stay tuned for more retrospective video game reviews. I have a lot of reviews coming to the channel in the near future, as well as many more Spider-Man games. Thanks for watching and God bless.
I need a new agent.